It's no secret that demand for electric vehicles in Australia has been going up over recent years. Unfortunately, there hasn't been enough of a supply to meet it, as current EVs on the market are beyond the budget of most Australians. That is, until now, as Volkswagen seeks to expand its influence in the country. Here's what you need to know. First up, the market at present. Currently, Tesla, the American-based automotive company headed by Elon Musk, sits at the top of the local Australian EV market. It's responsible for about 70% of the total EVs currently on the road there today. Tesla has so far sold about 17,000 EVs in the country since 2021, and that's just with one model, the Model 3. In comparison, Volkswagen Group Australia, VGA, hasn't even introduced a single EV there, despite its numerous brands that are producing zero to low carbon emission vehicles, and we'll get to why soon enough. Before that, we should mention the other brands currently representing the remaining 30% of EVs. These include Nissan, Kia, Mazda, and BMW. There are a lot more to mention, but the point is that VGA has yet to take advantage of a market that so many other brands have seen as worth moving into, but that's all about to change in the coming years. So why is VGA late to the party? The reason why VGA hasn't ventured into the Australian market has to do with national policies. Australia currently has very relaxed policies when it comes to vehicle emission standards, and there has been little to no indication that the government seeks to implement better vehicle standards. Despite international climate agreements, Australia's emission targets still leave much to be desired when it comes to dealing with the issue of climate change. As part of the Paris Climate Agreement, the German-based Volkswagen has committed to a 30% reduction in vehicle emissions by 2030. This puts it in direct conflict with Australia's relaxed policies, and it's why VW has so far chosen to stick to Europe as its primary target for EV rollouts. But that's going to change very soon, as reported by an official from VGA itself. Next, we have optimism in the VGA EV rollout. Climate change has steadily become more and more of a pressing matter for policymakers over the previous decade. It's become clear that if immediate steps aren't taken, the effects of climate change may be irreversible, and our way of life as we know it could be threatened. With the Paris Climate Agreement of 2016, most governments have acknowledged and committed to reducing global emissions to a large extent, and as trends have shown, those commitments are mostly being followed through on. It's believed, or hoped, that by 2030, economic sectors representing 70% of emissions can transition to carbon-neutral energy sources. That optimism's shared by VGA Managing Director Paul Sansom. Sansom has recently been appointed as an official of the Electric Vehicle Board of Australia, which no doubt comes with a lot of influence when it comes to vehicle emission policies and the like. In a recent press release, he brought up the fact that VGA has been Australia's primary importer of European passenger vehicles, and that reputation will extend to its rollout of electric vehicles very soon. As Sansom puts it, the transition to EV manufacturing that so many car companies are undergoing is part of a global megatrend that reflects how people are finally seeing the threat of climate change. This EV transition is also a means of meeting the increasing demands of digitalization and urbanization. It's clear that Volkswagen now sees it as inevitable that Australia will conform to these trends, and that means the market is, or will soon be, set for a smooth entry by VW EV brands. Whether this is optimism on the part of Volkswagen or just a realization that they're missing out on a fairly huge market, we're not sure, and we're not likely to get an answer. And now, the VW EVs coming to Australia. Some of the most promising EV cars in Volkswagen's roster include the ID SUV series. These are some of the best-selling EVs in the continent overall. According to Australian-based vehicle news site The Driven, VW's plans for EV introduction into the market involve the ID.4 SUV, but the timeline for this release hasn't been officially announced yet. Instead, there is another vehicle that will lead the charge for VW into the Australian EV market, and that's the Cupra Born. The Cupra Born is Volkswagen's first all-electric model from the company's performance brand. We already know that they've been testing the hot hatch on Australian roads, and it's expected that the car will soon be released sometime in late 2022. We don't know the details of its pricing, but it's been said that it will launch at an affordable price that puts it in competition with vehicles like the Nissan Leaf and the Hyundai Ioniq. Specific variants haven't been announced yet either, but the Born will supposedly have a maximum driving range of about 548 kilometers. Another EV model, the Skoda Enyaq iV, has also been confirmed to be coming to Australian markets in two variants, Smart SUV and Elegant Coupe. As with the Born, we don't yet know about the pricing of of these variants, but we do know some of their specs since they've been out in international markets. They are available in rear and all-wheel drive, with 4 power output options that range from 132 kilowatts to 220 kilowatts. The maximum range of the variants is about 545 kilometers. Up next, an uphill battle with Tesla. As we've mentioned earlier, Tesla currently has a tight grip over the EV market in Australia, and this coming year, they have a pretty big card to play. The Model Y has been out for over a year now, but it's only now going to make its debut on the Australian tarmac. Pricing was leaked on the 11th of May, and it values the car at around $68,000. That's a pretty steep price for a car that has been cited as using more energy than the older and cheaper Model 3, which is currently active in Australia. The thing is, Tesla has propped itself up to be the leading EV car manufacturer, and that reputation will likely give it an edge over the competition. Considering EV sales have been tripling each year in the country, Tesla stands to sell 50,000 EVs by the end of 2023, which could be difficult for Volkswagen to catch up to. Despite this, and the fact that Volkswagen Group's market share was only about 7% in 2021, Paul Sansom is optimistic that their EV lines will outsell Tesla. Only time will tell if that optimism is warranted. Now for other news. Federal elections to boost EV adoption. The upcoming federal elections in Australia might now bring with them some incentives for Australians to adopt electric vehicles. While in the past, EVs have been criticized for being unreliable and infeasible, public perception has changed, and so has that of policymakers. Polls for upcoming elections have seemingly crowned the Labour Party as favorites, and they've been quite vocal about their support for EVs. They've stated that there would be import exemptions on many, as well as exemptions from the 47% tax on those that are provided by employers. In addition to this, the party has also pledged a lot of capital for the development of charging stations across the Australian highways. If the Labour Party comes into office, EV enthusiasts and climate change activists in Australia can finally rejoice. Tesla EV delay. Though we've mentioned that Tesla would be a major competitor for VGA in the coming years, the company is currently facing a major problem. The demand in Australia is too high for their current production rate. Elon Musk has told interviewers that the company may just stop taking orders or limit them because of this excessive demand. The company has already stated that deliveries of the Model 3 in Australia might be delayed by about 9 to 12 months as a result of this low production. We don't know how exactly this is going to impact the launch of the Model Y in the country, but considering the launch dates have already gone by without comment from the company, things might be a bit rocky for this new venture. However, we also have to note that Model 3 production rate doesn't necessarily imply that the Model Y would suffer the same fate. Much of the production factories dedicated to the Model 3 have been repurposed for the Model Y, so that might also play a part in current delivery delays. Volvo EVs on the rise. For the first time since the Model 3 arrived in Australia in 2019, Tesla has been overthrown from the top spot in monthly EV sales. In April, the Volvo XC40 electric SUV outsold all other EVs, becoming Australia's best-selling EV for the month. It's not clear if this trend will continue for the company, but considering that the market seems to be leaning toward EVs with a compact SUV or fastback format, there's a big chance that it might. That is, until VGA and other brands start entering the EV market. That's a wrap for this video. What are your thoughts on the EV revolution in Australia? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.